where do those advisors spend their day? Really what you're trying to do is you're trying to get your brand in front of their eyeballs.
Exactly.
Right? And
Yeah.
how are you going to do that? Right? And
Totally. Yeah. I mean, I've got a guy in Texas that he's a car guy, and so we're getting him into the Porsche Club.
oh,
That's
okay.
like, hey, look, like you're gonna have a ton of fun, but also that's a good group of people to be, rubbing up.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Welcome to Advisor Talk with Frank LaRosa, brought to you by Elite Consulting Partners. It's the only podcast offering unfiltered guidance and a direct advice for all things concerning financial advisors, RIAs, and the practitioners in the wealth management business. And now, welcome to the show.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to Advisor Talk with Frank LaRosa. I'm your host, Frank LaRosa, and we are joined by a really special guest, Matt Hicken, who's the Senior Vice President of Consulting at Bill Good Marketing. Matt, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
How you doing?
Doing well. Thank
I'm
you.
sort of smiling because many people may not know this, but when I got into the business 30 years ago, I was an intern for a Prudential Securities advisor. I think he's now at Raymond James. And they had just started implementing the Bill Good marketing system.
Yeah.
And so I basically cut my teeth as an intern, and it sort of set my path on process and systems and all that other stuff. So it's really interesting to have you on the show, and we're going to talk about some stuff, really two areas. Anyway, welcome to the show. I'm really excited to get this done. So
yeah, me too. This is going to be good.
Good. So I'm going to maybe just, before we get into the meat of the conversation, I'm going to ask you to do really two things. One, just give us a little bit of background of where you've come from. And I know there's been some, you went away, you came back, which is great. But your role there. And then for those people that don't know, right, because there's a lot of people in the industry that maybe aren't aware of or don't know of Bill Good and the Bill Good marketing system, right? Just give us some high level of what it's all about, and then we're going to get into two areas which I think you and I both agree are a challenge for advisors. One is sort of how, like, team dynamics, and as teams grow, there's a lot of advisors that sort of like lifted their head up, and 10 years later they've blinked and lifted their head up, and their team is tripled in size, quadrupled in size, their revenue, their assets, and they've jumped on opportunities, and they have things going in all different directions, and it's creating some friction. So I want to talk to you a little about that. And then also, one of the things that I think why I connected to the whole Bill Good system early on, because it's really all about marketing, right? And how to build your brand and how to continue to drive that brand. So we'll get into that. So anyway, with that said, just give us some background and a little bit about where you've come from and how did you end up at Bill Good Marketing.
Yeah, well, so I'm one of those weird guys that, oddly enough, I've wanted to be a consultant since I was 14. And when I heard about Bill Good and that he does consulting, I thought, hey, that's cool. So I joined him in 2001. I essentially coached with him for about 6 years, and then went out to North Carolina. My family and I wanted to live on the East Coast. Worked with an advisor there for 14 years, became fully licensed, managed the team, managed the marketing, managed our portfolio. So I do know the investment side of the business, but then also as an advisor, worked with a lot of our prospects, and in particular worked our group retirement plans business. So I'm very familiar with that side too. But my wife's family are all still here in Utah. So we had some family things, had to come back to Utah to be closer to family. And when I let Bill know I was coming back, he immediately jumped on it. So in 2020, I joined back with Bill Good here as the Senior Vice President of Consulting. And now really my job is to work across North America, so the United States and Canada, with financial advisors and their teams, really working with just kind of the biggest teams and helping them overcome some of the things we're going to talk about today.
Okay, cool. So again, for those people that must have spent their industry under a rock and don't know anything about Bill Good or Bill Good Marketing, what is it all about, and what makes it so special, and how has it been able to be around for as long as it has? I think over 40 years at this point.
Yeah, no, 100% it is. And it's one of the only coaches I know of, if not the only coach I know of, that's been around since the early 80s. Uh, really, what it comes down to, I think, is this: that Bill Good's goal has always been, since the early 80s, to help advisors grow their business. But obviously, as we all know, and in fact, two of the big problems we're going to discuss today keep them from being able to do that. And that is, there's time management principles, there's team, there's marketing aspects to it. There's, back in the day, it was all cold calling, and now we have, digital marketing, which is, wasn't even thought of back in the 80s. So it's a very different world. But the cool thing is that as we've coached and worked with advisors all across North America, we find those teams that are just absolutely crushing it in a certain aspect, and they're doing great. So we take it, we document the steps, we document everything that it takes to do that. And then we take it to some other teams and say, hey, why don't you try this in your market as an idea? So long as it works every single time in various markets, we label it as a best practice. Well, now we have 136 best practices that we know when a team implements at least 50 to 60% of them, they're going to be on a path of doubling their production or working half as much while making the same amount within a few years. And it happens every single time, so long as they implement those things. So that, to me, is exactly why we've been able to stick around, is that just by its very nature, we constantly adapt. When I started with Bill, one of our best practices was how to collect and send faxes. That's long gone.
Yeah.
And now it's, how do you interact with people on social media? And there's best practices to that too.
Got it. So let's talk about the first big area that I've seen a lot, that I dealt with as a manager. I would have advisors come to me, and their buddies, their friends, they golf together, they go to lunch every single day together, and then one day they, like, over a drink or whatever, like, we should be partners, and they come in and they're like, we want to be partners. I'm like, maybe not, like that kind of thing. And so, but how do you? So, talk to me about what you're seeing today as one of the biggest problems with growing teams, and firms have been pushing teams, and teams are great until they're not great, right?
Totally.
So when you talk about, I guess it's really team effectiveness and team dynamics. What are you seeing as the things right now that advisors should be worrying about, and how are you solving problems with team inefficiency with the clients that you're working with?
Yeah, I mean, obviously there's a lot, kind of as you introduced there. There's a lot of different problems, but I'd kind of like to focus on a couple of them, just because there's a lot of teams that I work with are struggling with this, and that is, very first off, when and who to hire, right? And it's one of those things, and especially in today's job market, I mean, you probably see this all the time too with the teams you're working with. It's tough to find quality talent.
Mm-hmm.
And the problem most advisors have is they wait until they're in dire straits. They need that talent.
Right.
And therefore it becomes this: instead of hiring the best person for the job, they hire the best candidate. Big difference.
Oh yeah, I was that gave me a pause for a second. They hire exactly. They hire the best candidate, right?
And when you get right now, I mean, especially in the United States, given our current system, when you're getting 40, 50, 60 applications for a single job, and 75% of those are just people that are just trying to meet their apply for so many job standards, that's tough, because then you're screening through, you get maybe 10 quality candidates, maybe 5. You interview them, not all of them match personality wise. Some of them start off the meeting by making demands. I think I saw this one statistic that 20% of interviewees are showing up with their mom and dad to the interview. Just what on earth? Like, I don't understand what's going on today. But
yeah, right. Like, don't start the interview asking how many PTO days do you get off. Like, that's not a good way to go.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I get that, just as I'm sure you've seen too. And I conduct interviews for advisors all the time, and it blows my mind some of the questions I ask them, and I get the answers. And I'm like, oh, geez, okay, well, this candidate's out. But when you have 5 candidates, you needed somebody yesterday, you're like, okay, well, this is the least bad of all of them. So let's just get him in the door. We need somebody who can fog a mirror. And literally that's all they can do. So to me, the solution, that's a whole lot of problems.
Then the other thing too is on that is they don't there's that old expression, right? Hire slow and fire fast.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm working on that one. I'm actually I just went through something very similar to that where I basically I think hired the best candidate, not the best person for the position.
Yeah.
Because it was just like that. I dozens of resumes, interviews, Zoom calls, and I'm like, oh, okay, I can't keep doing this. Like,
Yeah.
And we basically tried to hire somebody that was not quite the right candidate, and we tried to make them fit into the role. And so I went against my gut instinct, and that was what I would tell advisors, like, go with your gut, right? Meaning, because your gut will tell you the truth. Your brain will say, no, you need to do this right now because you need to solve this problem. But if your gut is feeling like, I'm not jumping all over this person, you shouldn't hire them. And that's what I ended up doing and not going with my gut. And fast forward, where I am learning is I fire fast.
Yeah.
Where I am learning is very early on, if the things come up that I was concerned about at the beginning, I just pull the ripcord. I take the blame. It's funny we're having this conversation. I did it this morning.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Okay.
4 days in, I realized this was a mistake. And I took the blame. I took the blame on the candidate. I told them, hey, this was my fault. I was trying to fit something in. I thought you were a good personality, great person, trying to make the skill set fit what we needed, and it's just not there, and I apologize, right?
Yeah.
Because if you don't fire fast, you're doing that person a disservice.
100%.
You're then missing out on opportunities. And she said, oh, as a matter of fact, I really appreciate that because I got a call actually last night from a job that I applied to that they saw that I took another job, and they just wanted to follow up. I'm like, that's the point. There you go. So anyway, I don't mean to go off on a tangent, but I think that that's a really important thing because there are so many advisors that are going from the W-2 world where they're really not responsible for hiring or firing, right?
Mm-hmm.
They have an assistant. It doesn't work out. They run to the manager's office, get rid of him, get rid of her, whatever, and find me somebody new. But when you're running your own business, it's on you and on your team, and it's on your payroll that comes out of your bank account. Like, it's a different responsibility. So, sorry, I didn't mean to steal your thunder, but continue.
Not at all. That, to me, that tees it perfectly, because to me, that's the exact point that I like to make for advisors, is that I want to take all this like blame, guilt, shame, all this stuff, and just kind of shove it to the side, because the reality is what makes you absolutely brilliant as a financial advisor, and it's an absolute skill that is needed as a financial advisor, makes you horrible as a manager. Because you're going out there and you're trying to find ways that you can, exactly as you said, you're trying to find ways that you can take this person that's a good person, and you're looking for all the good in them, and you're trying to help them achieve their objectives. But the only role you have is, XYZ job. And so you're saying, well, let's achieve your objectives by, cramming you into this little.
Yeah, we'll figure it out.
Yeah. And it's cool. I love it. I love that you look at people like that, but that doesn't work. As a manager, you have to be a little colder and a little more statistical. I love that you also said, fire quickly. Bill always said, make second thoughts, first thoughts, and do that immediately. So if you're starting to have second thoughts, go with it.
Yeah. Right. Make second thoughts, first thoughts. Yeah.
So I want to go back to, again, finding the candidate, because I don't want to present a problem and not present a solution. One of the things that we always say is always be hiring. So even if I'm not hiring right now, literally, I don't need anybody. My team is full. We're looking good. I'm still making connections through wholesalers. I'm talking to people at events who are in different roles. I'm watching for people out in the community. I saw this one guy. He was probably the best greeter I've ever seen at REI back when they were, limiting how many people could go in the store due to COVID stuff. Man, like most people there, like would just be sitting there saying, okay, yeah, all right, next can go in. All right, next can go in. This guy was like, all right, what are you here for today? Like, where are you going for this? Hey, by the way, when you're going by that's right next to these things. Those are on sale. You got to get yourself one of those. And it's like, dude, you got to be in an advisor's office. You are a perfect business development person. So to me, looking for candidates always, and then all you have to do is stay in touch. And the beautiful thing about that, we did this on the team I was at with North Carolina. It's where I learned this principle. And we had this candidate that was in our pool, just somebody that we met at an event that was an assistant for another advisor at another team. But we thought, hey, let's stay in touch.
Yeah.
So we stayed in touch. Lo and behold, she's looking for a new place. The firm she was at, she wasn't too a big fan of the processes. But the cool thing was, since we'd stayed in touch with her for 3 years, we found out she's a gossip, like a massive gossip. Like there's going to be some toxicity to her employment on the team. Great person,
Yeah.
but not for us.
Right.
And then on the other hand, we had another one that we'd stayed in touch with. We had a good 6 or so that were in the pool. Another one that we'd stayed in touch with that we reached out to, who we thought was happy, who said, actually, I've been kind of thinking I may want to change. And we're like, well, change with us.
Yeah. Come on over.
Awesome. Let's go. And so you have to do some of the official stuff. We launched the job online. They immediately applied. And we hired, and the whole process took 3 weeks. We literally didn't have to interview any other candidates. Didn't have to go through this whole process of let me find the best option of the 10.
Yeah, that best of the worst kind of thing. Yeah.
So to me, always be hiring. And I know that doesn't solve a problem if somebody's like, yeah, but Matt, I'm in that first scenario. I didn't do what you just said, and I need somebody right now. Cool. Go with our second, the advice that you gave, Frank, and that is cool. Bring them in, see if they're a good candidate, bring them in. Because I've also seen the ones where it's not just, hey, they're obviously not the right person, but they're good and maybe we can make them fit. There's the ones that I see. In fact, I had a wealth analyst that was in this role. Their resume was sterling. I mean, that looked brilliant in the roles that he's had. I think he had a stint at Goldman Sachs. Like, it just looked good. Oh man, he was horrible. So sounds good. But once he was in the office, but again, cool. And that's the second thing I wanted to talk about as a problem. And that is a career map. But the cool thing is that career map makes it really easy to say, yeah, here's the 8 things we're looking for from this role. You're delivering only on 3 of them. You're probably not happy. We're clearly not happy. This isn't working. Like,
right.
What can we do? Like, and to me, that makes the conversation so different. And I love the way you approached yours, because it's the human side of firing, right? It's, look, I made a mistake. I thought maybe this could work out, but looking at everything that we're asking of you, we're not able to deliver. You're probably feeling that. Let's talk through this. And I've had several of those. Thankfully, I had one that was really cool that he actually, when we got down to it, you're like, look, you're making lots of mistakes. Like, this clearly isn't what you're enjoying. We're not enjoying it. So what do we do? And he's like, well, I actually want to be a youth pastor. And I was like, dude, that's awesome.
Yeah.
It's brilliant. If you've got a calling to do that, let's get you set up. And thankfully the advisor actually paid for them to go to school and get his degree to become a youth pastor.
That's cool.
It was worth it to the advisor to help him do what he wanted, but then also free up the position to put somebody in that actually could get the job done.
Yeah. What do you? How do you coach someone just shifting gears but staying in the same lane?
Yeah.
Because I see this often. How do you work with firms, businesses, right? Teams where they had people on the team that were doing well. You know, so the firm is doing $1 million. I'm just making up a number here. $1 million of revenue, and they had 1 or 2 people. Firm is continuing to grow, implement the things that you're doing with them. And then there are some people on the team that are just not growing with the team, right? Like, how do you coach your clients on dealing with that? They're good people. They're not gossipy. They fit the core values. We have a set of core values that we hire and fire against, right? Like, they got to match these core values. No one's perfect, but it gives us a roadmap. But how do you coach with your teams that? Because I think a lot of teams have woken up. Again, you pick your head up, and all of a sudden you're doing 4 or 5 times as much revenue as you used to do. You have more clients. The dynamics of the team are different, but there's always people that are still trying to do things the same way.
Yeah.
right? And they don't, and maybe they're not adding any more value. How do you coach your clients to deal with that?
Yeah, wow, that's a great question. So there's two sides to it. Number one, very first and foremost, and this is the hardest part for most teams. What does your team need? You need to have an honest conversation with yourself. And honestly, especially at that size, you typically have another team member that's been with you the whole time. That's just, they'll probably be more honest than you. But have an honest conversation either with yourself or with this team member to decide, okay, what does our team actually need? Like what kind of roles? And really the advising business is broken up into three parts. So this should help. And that is, there's the service side, right? So everything to do with paperwork, outreach to communicate with clients about things that are going on with the accounts and things like that. Then there's the advice. That's everything to do with research, creating the financial plans, and then sitting down in front of people. And then there's the outreach department, and that's our communication, our branding, anything to do with generating and creating leads. So looking in those three departments, where do you have needs? And then write out the positions that are needed in each of those departments to achieve your objectives, right? And then if I'm looking at that and I see I have this person that maybe was hired a while ago, hired on as a service associate, and right now we need a service manager. That's really what I need them to become, but they just can't. Um, what I need to do is sit down with them and have that conversation. That look, like right now, what our team needs is a service manager, and what we've documented is that every position, and I've got dozens of positions where this is documented, has a list of traits that are necessary to succeed in that position. And you can document this yourself. Everybody kind of has an idea of what they're thinking of. Like if you're going to be a service manager, you have to be organized, you have to be highly empathetic, you have to be extremely detail oriented. So you can go through and kind of think through some of these traits and list those off with your person. Say, these are the things that we're looking for from a service manager perspective. How do you feel those apply to you? Let them say. Like sometimes they'll try to, shoot above, hit above the belt and say, oh,
Right.
well, I'm highly organized. And you're like, okay, well, you look at your desk.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
so there's ways of going about that. But otherwise, I'm going to have that conversation with them. And then the other side of it is that in every existing role. So in other words, currently you're fulfilling the client service associate role. In that role, and again, we have all these things documented, there are 8 basic categories of duties, right? So there's the paperwork side, and we need 0 errors in paperwork filing. And then there's the answering the phone. We need you to answer the phone and make everybody feel special who calls in. So there's you could block it out into 8 different categories. In each of those categories, I would give them a score on a scale of 1 to 5. A 5 being they're crushing it. They're exactly what I'm looking for, and they're delivering everything in that area. A 1 would be, hey, like this is literally a write-up, and a warning. You've got to change. So in that scale, if they're anything but a 5, I need to give them very clear, and we as human beings generally do well with 3 to 5 bullet points. So I need to give them 3 to 5 points of you do these 3 things to get to a 5. And then if I give them that and I show them that, then the keys, whether they're delivering well or not, if they don't deliver, in my next review, it's, hey, look, you didn't deliver. At this stage, it's a warning because this is what we need. Our team needs this position filled. Our clients need somebody on our team doing this job. We've got to have you doing it. It's a warning. You've got 30 days. And that's kind of the extended version. You could cut it off, as you said, and we were talking earlier. But ultimately, it's
that's making an assumption that someone's been there for a while, not someone new.
Yeah, not somebody brand new.
Yeah.
But then the other side of it is that if they're doing great, then it's cool. Like if you're delivering all 5s in this role, and you demonstrate that you have the personality traits. So talking to junior advisors, for example, we bring them onto the team, and their whole thing is, I want to become an advisor, and I'm going to do this. Cool. As soon as you deliver all 5s in this, financial associate role, where you're going to help me run reports and do meeting prep and sit in on meetings and help with note taking, as soon as you're delivering 5s in all your current role, and you show me you have the personality traits of a good service advisor, we'll promote you. And then once you're a service advisor, same thing. As soon as you're hitting all 5s and you show me you have the traits of a lead advisor, perfect, we'll promote you. But I have to see that progression. And then there's a very clear career path, and each person knows, oh, cool. Like all I have to do is deliver these 3 bullet points for this item, these 3 bullet points for this item. I'm crushing it here. They know exactly what they need to do to get 5s and therefore be eligible for promotion.
Got it. Let's go to. I want to cover one more thing on this topic. We're not again same sort of lane.
Yeah.
Opposite end of the spectrum. Let's talk about the senior, the principal of the business, the senior leader, the founder of the practice. I heard a quote recently. I don't know if it's a quote or an analogy that an advisor doing $1 million and grows to $10 million didn't get there because they became a better financial advisor, right? They got there because they became a better operator, better business operator, right?
Yeah.
Where do you see the principals of a firm struggling, especially as the business has grown? And maybe it's not a question of where do you see, how do you coach them to start to understand that mindset shift of moving away from being the financial advisor to being the leader of the organization and the team, and what does that mean for their role, right? Because their role changes along the way. If they go from $1 million to 10 million, well, they can't be doing the same things at 10 million as they were doing at $1 million. How are you working with your clients on that dynamic shift?
Yeah. Well, no, it's a very good point. So the reality is the team does need a manager. Now, I have certain advisors can learn the proper ways of being that CEO, for lack of a better term, because when you're at that producing at that 10 million range, you are a CEO. You're managing a team. So you can become the CEO, and to your point, typically what happens, and you have to kind of plan on, is you're managing the absolute top tier clients. You're a max of 50 or fewer in that case, in order to maintain all the duties that are necessary to be a manager. Now, if you're like, Matt, literally that sounds like death, cool, then we will talk, because the reality is you need somebody who can fill that role. And I have a team that I'm working with right now that we've actually done that. We went out and he already had somebody that was running in their service department and managing their service department, that when we interviewed all the team members and talked through it, I'm like, oh, they could crush the role of COO, and therefore take all of the reporting, management, mentoring, training things off of that advisor. Allow them to continue to set the vision, right? Let's set the pace. Let them set the pace. But that allows them to then manage between 100 to 150 clients. The average advisor can manage between 200 to 250 at a high level of kind of comprehensive wealth management.
Right.
But with the right service team. But if you're working as the senior advisor with top tier clients, it takes a little bit more. There's a little bit more of the work. So 100 to 150, and then your COO can take over that management of the team. But again, you got to realize that that's a tough person to find, and you've got to get the right person into that role. So those are kind of the two different ways of solving that problem. The other option, though, I guess I should say, is partnership, right? So if you've got a few other advisors on the team, obviously every advisor, you shouldn't partner with them if you're all exactly the same. So one of the others most likely has a little bit more of a tilt to the organizational side of skills. They can take on the role of COO. Maybe you as the advisor, you're like, hey, no, I'm all about branding and marketing. That's exciting to me. Cool. Then you take on the role of CMO, and we can work through this as a partnership to take on the C-suite.
Got it. Okay. So that makes a good segue into our second area, which is obviously near and dear to my heart. Those people that follow me on social media and LinkedIn or Instagram, whatever, they know that I'm a big believer in marketing, branding, and marketing, because there's a difference, right?
Yes. Yes.
And ultimately, both of those things are trying to build what you described as sort of building a trusted advisor brand.
Yeah.
Right. So I know maybe just walk through some of the things that you're seeing and doing with your clients that maybe they're doing it kicking and screaming, right? That's what I am finding. They're going into like, all right, if I had to open up a Facebook account, I will, but I don't ever use Facebook, right? Like, okay, but your clients do. So Yeah, just talk a little bit about your from your point of view, why it's so important to build a trusted brand, and maybe even backwards from your perspective. What's the difference between building a brand, like branding and marketing?
Oh yeah, no, I love that question because I 100% agree with you on that, and I'd actually love to hear your reasoning too, because I'm sure it's very similar. But saying it twice, I think is probably still not enough for a lot of the listeners. But um, the biggest difference is a brand is the building of the perceptions, right? So the way I look at a brand is it's the feelings and thoughts that occur in your market. So in other words, your clients, your prospects, your strategic partners, anybody that you're working with, it's the feelings and the thoughts that come to mind when they interact with anything to do with your company, whether they see the logo, they make a call or whatever it might be. But
Yep.
so in other words, it's a be and be perceived as, right?
Yep.
So it's both. Marketing is just getting out there and communicating the fact that you exist and that you have the unique capabilities of helping the people that you help.
Yeah. It's more about sort of a proactive versus reactive. But I agree with the branding side. Marketing, I look at it as like more sales focused,
Yeah.
outbound, whether it's email campaigns, LinkedIn posts, things like that. I would say that marketing is much more sales focused. And the reason why I say it that way is because I think that when advisors hear branding, they think, oh, okay, so I'm gonna build a website. I'm gonna put some imagery out. I'm gonna do some posts and stuff like that, and that's gonna generate leads for me. I'm
Yeah.
like, no, it's not. Like, it's not. I said,
Yeah.
what branding does for you over time, and you'll know it's working when you go to an event or a golf outing or a cocktail party or something, and somebody in passing says to you, hey man, how you doing? Da, 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 yeah, hey, I saw you just hired that new person, or I saw you just did something. Like
Mhm.
they saw something on
Yeah.
on your LinkedIn account or on your Instagram, whatever, that clearly they saw it and remembered what you were doing. That
Yeah.
I tell advisors, that's when you know it's working,
Yeah.
right? It doesn't mean the phone's going to ring, but it's that consistent message over and over again to your community, which is a bigger community nowadays, right?
Yes. Oh yeah.
Um, and then you connect the branding and all of that to the marketing. You create
Mhm.
awareness, and then the marketing is the action that connects the awareness, which makes someone click a button, go to your Instagram, go to your link, your website, and book an appointment, or email you back. That's where they have to go together, and you have to do both,
Mhm.
right?
Oh yeah.
So when
I love that
you
litmus
work with
test.
your clients, how are you doing that? How are you teaching? I'll call it us old dogs. I'm not really an old dog, but maybe I am. But
Yeah.
teaching the old dogs new tricks.
Well, that's a very good question. So, and it kind of comes into a lot about what you just said. To me, the big key is let's talk about who you are, and then probably more difficult for most advisors, just because again, by nature, we just want to help people, which is cool. Um, but let's talk about who you're not, and therefore who you shouldn't be trying to attract, right? Um, I have this one advisor I work with. He's one of my favorite people in the whole world, but he's he has fully embraced exactly who he is. He is an ultra conservative politically, and he's decided that's who he wants to work with. I am great with. I don't care which side of the aisle you're on, or if you refuse to be in any aisle. Just embrace who you are and realize some people are not going to like that, and that's a good thing,
Yeah.
because that means you're interacting and working with people that a you specialize in helping, and b you actually enjoy helping. So let's find out who you are, because again, I can't take a brand and say, okay, I'm going to brand you as the tallest financial advisor is if you're 5'4", right? So let's take who you are in reality, and then let's talk through, like, okay, then who do you actually specialize in helping? And sometimes who you are is you've built a career, or really kind of delved deep into certain aspects. I've talked to some advisors who are brilliant on the tax side, or some of them who have delved deep in trust work. So either way, let's take who you are and then decide who you can best help. And then we'll go out there and communicate to them. And the way we see it is there are 12 marketing channels. And each of those marketing channels in order of ROI starts off with the first five are what we call relationship marketing channels. And those are the best channels to actually go after high net worth, ultra high net worth individuals. You can still get in front of high net worth, ultra high net worth with the other channels, but it's a lot easier on the relationship side. And that's existing client introductions. So in other words, say Frank, here's my buddy Bob. Bob, this is Frank. You guys got to work together. And then the next are referrals, where I just say, hey, Frank, you got to call Bob. Here's his number. He needs help. But there's no personal introduction. Third, then we move into prospects, existing people that have expressed interest, just haven't become a client. Then connections, who are people that I know socially, but it'd just be weird to try to approach directly. And then strategic partners, which we label as COIs, but they're in their professional capacity, they refer you business, right? So CPAs, attorneys is where everybody thinks, but think outside the box too. Not just CPAs and attorneys can refer you business in their professional capacity. And then we go into the mass channels, and then there's a whole bunch of those. But
Right.
the idea is all I have to do is pick, okay, well, who are you trying to attract, right? Who does your brand best attract? And then let's pick the appropriate channel that's going to attract them, and we'll choose it in order of ROI in order to get in front of more of those people.
Yeah. Where do those advisors spend their day? Really what you're trying to do is you're trying to get your brand in front of their eyeballs.
Exactly.
Right. And how are you going to do that? Right.
Totally. I've got a guy in Texas that he's a car guy, and so we're getting him into the Porsche Club.
Oh, okay.
It's like, hey, you look like you're going to have a ton of fun, but also that's a good group of people to be, rubbing up.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I have for those that people follow me and know that I'm a Ferrari guy.
Yeah,
the Ferrari in the corner there. Yeah. Yeah. That's at Indianapolis. It was a great track to run on. And I'm also a Porsche guy just because I run that car more frequently and it's less expensive to repair than a Ferrari. And I have a buddy of mine that's also a Porsche guy, and I go to our track on the weekends and stuff like that. And you learn it's a different bond between drivers, right? And I've told him a dozen times, like, hey man, you need to come here, right? Mm-hmm. Like I'm not like, there's no. It's more his target market than my target market, right? Because my target market is financial advisors, right? That's the center of our universe. That's the only people I work with, and so there are maybe there's one or two in there somewhere, but for the most part, they're not. They're professionals, they're doctors, they're lawyers, they're business owners, really. And I'm telling them, like, you need to be here because this is a target-rich environment for you. And even if you don't want to push your Porsche on the track, just be here. Mm-hmm. Come and hang out with us and in the garage, and and they just don't. Yeah, he just don't want to do it. So,
and it blows my mind on those because exactly to your point, I love that you're coaching him in that, because that to me that's brilliant. Because not only do you have the chance to rub elbows with people that could become clients, but and that's cool, and that'll happen. You don't go to like glad hand and hand business cards, but go to be a part of the group.
Yeah.
Which if it's true to who you are, if he's a car guy, why wouldn't you want to go hang out with car guys? And
he knows 10 times what I know about Porsches. He's telling me this, that, and the other thing. I'm like, dude, why are you coming?
Yeah.
And I've developed friends. We don't hang out like afterwards, but during the week, texting, hey, you coming on Sunday? That I never would. And to me, that's outside my world. I am not a schmoozer. I am not the guy that goes to a party and makes friends with everybody. Everyone knows that about me. I'd rather just sit in the back and watch. But when I go in that environment, it's a love of the sport. It's a love of the cars. And I'm not a car. I don't know anything about cars. He does. He can tell you which engine, which this, which that. And I'm like, dude, you should just come because it's a great place to be, and you'll develop business from it at some point, right?
Totally, you will. And
don't come disingenuously. Don't come disingenuously, right?
Totally.
But he's a Porsche guy, so you fit right in. Anyway, so one of the things that I'm going to say, I give you a comment. I want you to let me know how you answer this, because I get this feedback all the time when I talk to advisors about marketing and branding.
Yeah.
Well, Frank, I don't really need that because I get all my business from referrals. Right? That's what we hear. I don't need a real fancy website. I don't need any social media, because all my business comes from referrals, right?
Awesome.
How do you coach someone like that?
Yeah. Well, very first question is, what's your net new assets?
Yeah.
Because honestly, if their answer is no, I'm still bringing in net new 30, 40 million a year. Awesome, man. Your referral marketing is crushing it. Well done.
Yeah.
And then there's not really much we need to do unless you want to grow faster. And then let's add something. But often what I hear is that's usually the answer from an advisor that's been around the block for a while, right? And therefore, when they brought in their first clients at the age of 30 or 40, and those clients were just getting ready to retire at the age of 60 to 65, well, inevitably, now that advisor's in their upper 40s, low mid 50s, that client is 80s, 90s, probably withdrawing a decent clip, and most likely, unfortunately, going to pass away not too long from now. And unless you've done a good job of becoming the family financial advisor, as we say, those assets are going out the door.
Yeah. Which most don't. Which most are not good at that.
They're not. And so usually what I get to when I ask that question is I get well, I don't know if we've calculated that. That's usually the first one. And then,
Yeah.
the next is well, I mean, we're probably netting 1 to 2 million a year. I was like, okay, is that enough to compensate for market loss
Yeah.
every year?
Yeah. They're like, oh well, we brought in $5 million last year. I'm like, okay, how much went out though?
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
It's
client.
usually a net negative.
Yeah. Right. Exactly.
In which case it's okay, cool. I love it. Let's take a look at that. Now, one of the numbers we look at is that if you're doing all the right activities, and we have a set couple of formulas that get you this, you should be getting 15% of your clients giving you at least one referral per year. So in other words, often what I get is advisors are in between, and the average advisor is growing by about 7%, and most of it's through referrals. So that they're getting that 7% growth from referrals. Well, is that 15% of your clients are giving you one referral, in which case the quality of the referrals is probably not there. So we can talk through that too. If it's not 15%, let's up the number. And we can go through that. Second thing I'll do is we'll take a look at, okay, well now what's your strategy in order to replicate or clone your top tier clients? Because it's not just referrals. Doing the basic referral stuff is awesome, but like, how do I take those top tier clients and get them to introduce me to people like them? And some of those clients will not. That's just not who they are. And that's cool. We're going to screen through those and get to those that are. We're going to get to those that they're the life of the party. They belong to 3 boards, all that stuff. And we're going to work systems to get in front of their friends. So that we'll go that route. And that's fun. All we're doing is expanding your existing form of marketing that you love and have mastered. We're going to amp it up. Then we're going to look at, okay, well, where are we at? What's your net new now? Is it hitting our goals or is it not? If it's not, then let's start taking a look at potential COIs. There is a set method to develop COIs. I know everybody says, oh, I've tried to work with attorneys and CPAs. Cool. There's actually a study done. 90% of the CPAs in the study said that they would never refer to a financial advisor. Totally get it. What I have to do is look for the 10% that will, and then do the right things to get them to refer. And then also realize that, as I said earlier, we define a good COI or a strategic partner as a non-competitive professional who's an influencer amongst your ideal clients and is willing to help you in your business. So nowhere in there did I say CPA or attorney, or even if that they have to be financially related. One of our strategic partners that gave us 1 to 2 referrals a year was a luxury car dealer, because he took a consultative approach when his clients came in, and therefore became an influencer. He was in the perfect position to tee them up to work with us because he knew what they would need and when we were ideal to fit that need. So that look outside of the box and work that route, because again, what I've seen is cost per client acquisition is probably the lowest with those professionals. And by our calculations, it's about $1,500 per client if you're doing the right activities with those professionals. So pretty cheap, to be honest.
Yeah. Otherwise known as CAC. We call that CAC.
Yeah. There you go. Yeah.
Yeah. Cost of client acquisition. Right. Okay. I think that's really interesting, because I don't think advisors are focusing on that. I think that most advisors, which you probably would agree, yes, they get their new business from referrals, but it's reactive. It's essentially crossing my fingers. I've only come across one advisor that in many, many years, a friend of mine, and we were on a hunting trip, and I asked him what kind of KPIs does he track.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, we track one. I'm like, one? Because we track one KPI, and that is COI interactions.
Oh, nice.
That's it. The number of interactions on a given week with his organization. That could be phone calls, lunches, breakfast, community events, invitations to a golf outing. They touch as much as they can possibly touch, because they realized, they dialed in the numbers, how much referral business in millions and millions and millions of dollars comes in based on the number of interactions. And not necessarily, it's not always like, oh, it has to be a new COI. It's engagement with COIs.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, it's keeping your name at the top of the list, inviting them to educational events, continuing education things. And to his point, and to your point, it's not just accountants and and attorneys.
Yep.
It's people of influence in the community.
Totally.
So
100%. And then, and part of that ongoing contact is just to train them to be an advocate for you. They
right.
want to be. I saw this stat that 54% of your clients want to advocate for you.
Yeah.
But most of us, and honestly, like, think about it for you personally too, as an advisor, anybody listening, and for you and me, the reality is like, even amongst my friends, I just assume they got that side of their life taken care of. Like, I don't start with the question of, all right, so where are you at with financial advice? Like that, none of us do that. And so don't assume your clients are either. What I need to do is train them on what to watch for that would indicate that their friend clearly needs help, right? Outward signs that would indicate that they need some help. And then in which case, your advocates, they're going to want to see that. They're going to want to know exactly what to say and why it's urgent that they say it. And then they'll get them in front of you.
Okay. So let's in the interest of time, wrap this up a little bit.
Yeah.
So how do we get you some referrals, right? How do we, if somebody's listening to this and they're interested in learning more about what you can do for them on, with your coaching program and your consulting, which is different, right? And in implementing, the Bill Good system in some form or fashion, right? How does a listener here go about engaging with you?
Yeah. So, best take a look at our website, right? Because obviously everybody listening has different needs or different things. You're like, hey, actually that struck a chord. I need some help there. If you go to our website, you'll see a lot of the different resources that we have, a lot of them free, and you're welcome to take a look at those. But then as far as our coaching and consulting go, best to talk with one of our consultants. So what we do is what we call as a growth plan. And essentially you'll meet with one of our consultants. They'll talk to you and they'll see what you need. We have talked to advisors on a number of occasions that were like, oh yeah, you're good. I mean, I appreciate you calling in. And if you ever do have a need, call, but otherwise it sounds like you've got everything on track. Most often the only reason why they're calling us is because there's a problem, in which case, yeah, we'll find out what that problem is and we'll let you know exactly how we can best solve it. But then the other thing, just real quick too, just because I'm teaching this class next week, I teach a course. So if you're looking at it, you're like, hey, this marketing side of this discussion really strikes me as something I need. I teach a course called Asset Accelerator. And I started this course and created it with the idea in mind that there's just not that training in the industry anymore. To take a young advisor and help them learn how to develop leads, and then not just develop them, but once they're sitting in front of you in the office, how do you close it?
Yeah.
And so we go through it, we do role playing and everything. And what I've actually found, that was my idea. What I found is I have just as many guys that have been in the industry, exactly the guys that we were talking about, that are getting that, 5 to 7 referrals a year, and they're thinking they're great. And they're realizing, hey, I want to kick this up a little bit for the next 3 years before I sell, to maximize the value. And everything I'm trying isn't working. The old cold calling is rough. The seminars are too costly, and I just need help. So I'm getting a lot of them coming to class too. And the reality is, closing a referral is very different than closing somebody that came off of a seminar. It's a different process, a different mentality. A referral, you just have to not screw it up. The others, you have to really demonstrate value. So we go through that whole process, and
because there's already a perceived level of trust.
Oh, yeah, exactly. They've already said, okay, my friend says you're good, so I can work with you.
Yeah.
So it's a different thing, but I teach all of that in this course, and the people that exit, like, they do phenomenally. I mean, I took one guy who had a horrible close rate of 25%, And within weeks after the class, he was at 45% close ratio. I took another guy that hadn't closed anybody yet, and in 15 minutes closed his first prospect afterwards because he knew the questions to ask. And that's what it comes down to. So this course goes from everything from how do you get leads, how do you get enough, to how do you close them and onboard them in such a way that it kind of replicates and cycles through again. So in that class, again, there's information on our website about that.
Okay. And for everybody, and we'll put a link in the bottom of the post, but it's billgoodmarketing.com. And if they want to contact you directly, what's the best way to do that?
Yeah, just call into our office and my assistant can get a time set up for us. So if you just call that main line there on the website, then that'll get you to us. It's and honestly, it's just, number just left my head. So
got 800-678-1480.
That is it, and they can get you hooked up.
Okay, awesome. All right, Matt, I appreciate it. Thank you very much for your time. This has been really good. This is just the areas that people don't want to talk about as much because it's not spicy. It's not about portfolio management.
Yeah.
It's just about getting better at what you do. And I guess part of it is really recognizing what you're not good at.
Yeah.
And seeking help for it, which unfortunately a lot of type A personality people like us have a hard time doing that sometimes.
Agreed.
So anyway, thanks for listening. For my listeners, thanks for joining. If you're listening to this on Apple, iTunes, or Spotify, wherever you're listening to it, don't forget you can go to the YouTube channel and watch us live here or watch us the recording. Two good-looking guys here, both in blue today. So it's Advisor Talk with Frank LaRosa. And don't forget to check me out on my Instagram account, which is franklarosa.elite, for some other things, stuff like this, all sorts of car things, racing. I put some posts out the other day about inside my Porsche, so the inside cam, the dash cam, run around the track there. So anyway, with that said, Matt, I appreciate you joining us. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks for listening to Advisor Talk with Frank LaRosa. If you're looking for more advice or solutions on any topics relating to the financial services industry, or just want to subscribe to our podcast, head on over to eliteconsultingpartners.com/podcast.